Hey everyone, welcome back to Caffeine Chaos and Cuss Words, episode 15. And unless you've been living under a rock or just aren't on social media, your entire news feed or your For You page is flooded with images of Mackenzie Shrillia following the release of Netflix's The Crash. We discussed this story in episode 13, Hell on Wheels, prior to Netflix's release of The Crash. Today, we need to talk about the collective rage and absolute heartbreak the internet is feeling right now. If you thought the 2023 trial was wild, this documentary lays bare the absolute audacity of Mackenzie and her enablers. We're diving into the details that have everyone's blood boiling. The toxicity, the parents, the evidence, and the massive fallout happening right now in real time. So let's get into it. Let's call a spade a spade. The Crash doesn't hold back on who Mackenzie Shrillia actually was before she pinned that gas pedal to 100%. In school, she wasn't some sweet, misunderstood teenager, despite what her friends had to say in the documentary. She was a bully. She was mean, manipulative, and used to getting exactly what she wanted. But where does that behavior come from? The documentary heavily spotlights a history of zero accountability. When you have a kid exhibiting severe toxic behavior and your response as a parent is to sweep it under the rug, defend it, and treat the child like a precious angel who can do no wrong, you aren't protecting them, you're enabling them. They fostered an environment where Mackenzie believed she was untouchable. And tragically, Dominic Russo and Davian Flanagan paid the ultimate price for that delusion. Now let's talk about the footage featured in the documentary, because this is where viewers are losing their mind. First up, Mackenzie's mother in the courtroom, where she stood up to give her statement, her impact statement. It was an absolute masterclass in narcissism. Her statement seemed to focus only on, quote, poor Mackenzie, unquote. It was Mackenzie this and Mackenzie that, treating her daughter like the primary victim of a tragedy that she herself caused. It was so egregious that the judge literally had to call her out on it. And what was the mother's defense when confronted about ignoring the two young men who had actually died? She had the nerve to say, well, Davion was a new friend. Think about that. As if the length of a friendship somehow dictates the value of a human life. As if Davion being a new friend made his death any less devastating to his own family. The utter lack of empathy is genetic. And it didn't stop there. Let's talk about her dad, Steve Shrillia. The man had the absolute balls to sit down for his documentary interview wearing a shirt that said boom across it. Boom. On a global streaming platform. Meanwhile, the families of Dominic and Davian are suffering from severe lifelong trauma over the literal boom sound Mackenzie's Toyota Camry made when it streamlined head on into that brick wall at 100 miles per hour with zero braking. The sheer tone deafness of that wardrobe choice for a documentary about a fatal crash tells you everything that you need to know about the lack of respect this family has for the victims. Now let's talk about the ultimate defense line the family tried to hide behind: the medical emergency angle. Throughout the trial and heavily highlighted in the documentary, Mackenzie's mother claims her daughter has been diagnosed with POTS since back in 2017. The narrative they wanted everyone to swallow was that Mackenzie didn't murder those boys. She just suffered a sudden medical episode and passed out behind the wheel. This only was mentioned after detectives paid Mackenzie a visit in the hospital, and she is heard speaking to her mother in a made-up language, assumed to be gibberish or pig Latin, but I will tell you firsthand it is neither, as I myself speak and understand both since childhood. Anyhow, in this made-up language, she asks her mother a question, and that is later translated by police, that she asks her mother, "Can't we just tell them I had a seizure or something?" And then she turns to police and asks them, "Can't you just take away my license for like 10 years? So this medical narrative is pushed at trial. But here is the gaping massive hole in that story. Prosecutors explicitly noted during the trial that there was absolutely no testimony from an actual medical professional to back this claim up. Think about the sheer logic here. If your child is facing lifelong prison for murder, and you have undeniable medical records proving she had some kind of chronic condition that causes sudden blackouts, why on earth wouldn't you offer those records up immediately? Why didn't the defense subpoena a single treating physician or specialist to put those medical files on the record? You didn't, because it was a convenient excuse that once again was made up by Mackenzie. And let's look at this from a parenting perspective. As a mom myself, this argument absolutely enrages me. If your child has a legitimate, heavily documented medical condition diagnosed since 2017 that is so severe it can cause unpredictable blackouts, fainting, or a complete loss of physical control, why are you allowing her to get a driver's license in the first place? Why are you putting her behind the wheel of a 2-ton weapon? I know people with autism or sensory processing disorder who choose not to drive because they know a severe meltdown or becoming overwhelmed behind the wheel could cause them to lose control of a vehicle. Responsible parents and responsible human beings protect their kids and the public from those risks. You don't hand them the keys. Let them drive unmedicated and unmonitored, and then use the disease as a get out of jail free card when they kill 2 people. Besides, the narrative completely falls apart when you look at her life inside the walls of the Ohio Reformatory for Women. Since her conviction, statements and affidavits from inmates housed alongside Shrillia have trickled out. And guess what? The women living with her every day have noted that they have never witnessed Mackenzie receiving any kind of specialized POTS treatment. One of these statements came from somebody who is now on the outside but was housed with Shrillia, who even supposedly dated Shrillia while she was doing a 2-year stint in this same prison for drugs. No regular blood pressure checks, no targeted cardiovascular medications, nothing. If it was so severe enough to cause a 100 miles per hour blackout that killed 2 people, it should require strict management in prison. But the reality speaks for itself. It was a phantom diagnosis used to dodge accountability. Now let's look at the chilling, calculated details of the crash itself. When the toxicology report came back, it only showed marijuana in her system, even though both marijuana and mushrooms were found in her possession at the scene. But it's her physical actions that night that prove premeditated. In almost every single photo, Snapchat, and video shown of Mackenzie driving prior to that night, she almost never wore a seatbelt. She thought she was too cool for it. But on the early morning of July 31st, 2022, the night she decided to use her car as a weapon, suddenly she chooses to buckle up. Now, neither boy, Dominic nor Davion, had a seatbelt on. And we will discuss that in just a moment. But the defense tried to claim that this was just a tragic random accident. The tech receipts say otherwise. The documentary highlights the terrifying audio and text recovered from Dominic's phone. Days before the crash, Mackenzie sent him texts saying, "Watch your back, your house, your car, and your life," because they were in one of their big altercations and Dominic had had enough. He wanted out. He was sick of the bullshit. So he refused to let her back into his house. There was even a witness, a friend of Dominic's mom named Hench, who stated that he literally heard Mackenzie screaming that she was going to wreck the car during a previous blowout altercation. This wasn't a sudden loss of control. It was the eventual execution of a repeated threat. This was also proved by the fact that the right-hand turn that she took just prior to pinning that pedal to the floor and going full throttle was controlled, calm, calculated. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. Then at the end of the documentary, her mom tries to place the blame on the victim, Dominic, claiming that just 2 weeks prior to the crash, and I don't mean crash the episode, I mean the actual crash, he had jerked the steering wheel during an argument. Nice try. The forensic evidence from the car's black box completely blows that lie out of the water. The data showed the steering wheel violently moving back and forth and the car shifting from drive to neutral and back to drive again in those final 5 seconds. Remember, the boys were found without a seatbelt on. Davion, who had been in the back seat, was found stacked on top of Dominic in the front seat. That wasn't Mackenzie losing control of that vehicle. That was the shifting data of Dominic and Davion in the passenger and back seat desperately fighting for their lives, trying to grab the wheel and shift the gear to regain control from a girl who had the throttle pinned at 100%. They tried to save themselves, and she made sure that they couldn't. To wrap this up, the chickens are finally coming home to roost for the people who enabled this monster. Mackenzie's dad, Steve Shrillia, was an art and digital media teacher at Mary Queen of Peace School in Cleveland. Following his defensive comments and the backlash from the crash hitting the Netflix, wow, no. To wrap this up, the chickens are finally coming home to roost for the people who enabled this monster. Mackenzie's dad, Steve Shrillia, was an art and digital media teacher at Mary Queen of Peace School in Cleveland. Following his defensive comments and the backlash from the crash hitting Netflix, the school officially placed him on administrative leave. The community and the school administration finally said enough is enough. His poor judgment in handling his child's vicious behavior, accompanied by his support of her drug use and his continued shameless attempts to protect her after she brutally stole 2 lives, has costed him his career. And if you're wondering if Mackenzie is still fighting this, oh, she's tried. She filed a massive appeal on her murder convictions, throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick. Her legal team claimed that there was a lack of sufficient evidence to prove intent, that past relationship issues were improperly admitted to establish a motive, that procedural, clerical errors occurred during her trial, and they even threw in a disputed claim that the coroner's report had been modified without proper protocol. But the justice system didn't buy it. The appeal was soundly denied by the Ohio 8th District Court of Appeals, and the Ohio Supreme Court flat out declined to even hear her case. Her desperate petitions for a brand new trial were also thrown out and dismissed by the lower courts. The door on her excuses have officially slammed shut. So where does that leave us now? Mackenzie Shrillia remains locked away, serving her 15 years to life at the Ohio Reformatory for Women, which this is not much of a punishment because the more I deep dive on social media, the more I find out. I mean, this woman has become the it girl of the prison, the Regina George, everything that she ever wanted. And not only that, up until Steve lost his job, her lifestyle inside the walls of the prison were funded by her parents. And I recently found out that this particular prison offers these catalogs that allow inmates to order, outside food, makeup like MAC, CoverGirl, Wet n Wild, jewelry, even flat screen TVs. And they have access to tablets. They can purchase photo sessions and selfie sessions. I mean, this girl is literally living her dream life behind bars. So if you ask me, this isn't much of a punishment, but at least she's off the streets and unable to harm any more people. According to official Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction records, her absolute earliest date for parole eligibility is set for October 29th, 2037, with her very first parole board hearing being scheduled officially for September of 2037. And for all of you guys listening today, I am praying her parole gets denied because just like Gypsy Rose Blanchard, she will use her story, not the story of Dominic and Davion, to build a new brand, become an influencer, and profit off of this tragedy. Because that's everything she's ever wanted. That's exactly who she is. And that is exactly what she's going to attempt to do. You heard it here first, folks. And Dominic provided for her in life. She'll make damn sure to use his and Davion's name to allow them to provide for her in death. A death that she caused. Which brings me to my last thing. Since the release of the Netflix episode, Dominic's sister has launched her own podcast, The Big Sister Unhinged. So please check it out to support the family of the victims. And there's also this petition going around, which I will link on our socials. It's for Dom's Law, which is a modernized Son of Sam law. Son of Sam law prevented from profiting off of book deals and such for crimes committed. However, Dom's Law is looking to expand on this law to include internet content and to stop killers from becoming influencers off of their crimes. During the time the Son of Sam law was placed, we didn't have TikTok and YouTube and all that we have today. So, Dom's Law will prevent Mackenzie from paroling and making a profit off of this tragedy. That's the update for today. Let me know your thoughts on the crash if you've seen it yet. And please keep Dominic and Davion's family in your thoughts. If you liked the show and you want to support it, all of our links, socials, website, Patreon, can be found at linktree/chaos crewpod. That's linktr.ee/chaos crewpod. And of course, shout out to our sponsor, Dubby Energy, fueling my chaos one cup at a time. Get your Dubby Energy drink at dubby.gg and use my code CaffeineCrew for 10% off of your order. This episode was written, narrated, and produced by yours truly. And until next time, if the person you're with makes you feel like you're trapped in a car with no brakes, if you're walking on eggshells or literally looking for an exit, please listen to me. You do not have to wait for the crash. There are people whose entire job is to help you get out safely. If you're in the U.S., there are resources available right now 24/7 that are confidential and free. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, call 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. If you cannot speak safely, text the word START to 88788. There's even an online chat option. Go to thehotline.org. They even have a quick exit button on the site, so if you need to hide your screen fast, you can. If you're planning to leave, remember to try and use a safe phone, maybe a friend's phone or a library computer, because digital tracks can be dangerous. Stay caffeinated, stay curious, and stay chaotic. And if you feel like a relationship feels like it's on a collision course, get out. Protect yourself. Because you matter. All right, I will see you guys next week for a new episode. This has been a Busy House production.